The job of the news media is to speak truth to power. And over the last week, the news media has been speaking lies to the masses.
Could be more uncle specific, sitting in the armchairs on WhatsApp, you can give galis to any PM in the world. Earlier it was not there.
Yeah.
Today you are like, you can tweet to Narendra Modi. Like, can you imagine how stupid and so easy it has become?
Through the night, your TV news channel is telling you a fighter pilot from Pakistan is in custody. We have taken Islamabad. The Pakistani Prime Minister is hiding in a bunker. They're doing it intentionally. These are psyops. We want to confuse the Pakistani, armed forces.
Like if a comedian says one wrong word, entire nation comes to pull them down, to take them to Lok Sabha, like we'll discuss in the next parliament session.
Traditional media is in constant competition with social media. Priya from, say, Amritsar is posting that, I can hear sirens and I can hear, and there is a blackout. I am going to believe that woman, right? Which is what I think the traditional media is up against.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of So What. Today we have a very special guest in addition to Garima, and I'm really keen to get straight into the conversation. We have Atul Khatri, who's a comedian. You should follow him on Twitter. He's really, really funny. But today he's on this podcast as the resident old person because Atul is 57. He's lived through both Kargil and the 1971 war. So we're going to get some insights from him. And as always, we have Garima, Filmfare Award-winning writer, in case you don't remember. I remind them every
No, don't lie.
What? You won a
People get
Filmfare.
confused. No,
She was part of the writing room for TVF Pictures.
Oh,
and they won a
lovely.
Filmfare.
Great.
Yeah.
I love TVS.
You should take space.
Credit, yes.
Okay.
Congratulations, Garima. It was just probably late in the day. I don't know how many years late I am, but congratulations.
Thank you.
How many years late is he?
Cup 2, 3.
2, 3. Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
That's
But
Great.
Filmfare stays on your resume forever.
So this particular sofa has got two good writers sitting on it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin
One
and
better
you.
than the other. I have not won a Filmfare award yet.
Not yet.
Not
Yeah.
planned to also, but yeah,
Never say never.
actually.
So, backstory to this, which I wanted to bring up, and Garima knows that I've been wanting to bring this up since yesterday. So we had prepared a list of questions and talking points that we were meant to send you, right? And a lot of it also deals with, you've lived through Kargil, you've lived through 71, even though you were really young when it happened.
Yeah.
And we wanted to draw in on that and see how different times were then compared to what we've seen in the last few weeks. So I sent the questions to Garima, and Garima said, these are very out of syllabus for me because I was 2 years old when Kargil happened. So I said, these are not meant for you. These are meant for Atul Khatri. And she said, oh, isn't he in his mid-30s?
Thank you, Garima. She's a very good writer. Give her the Oscar. Not Filmfare.
Yeah, so one compliment to take home already, which is that Garima thinks that.
In my defense, I think I thought about why this misinformation was there in my head, and I think it's because we started when I was on the internet, when I started watching content on the internet, you were like you and the content that you were creating was what we were consuming.
Correct.
So I think we aged with the internet in a way that I thought that because he is giving opinions, he may be a couple of years older. So that's how, I don't know.
I really take it as a compliment.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you so much, Garima.
I'm glad.
He has a daughter who's older than you.
Yeah.
So just for reference, that's no, but it's cool.
I do
we'll
dumb
take it.
things sometimes, a lot of times.
As tradition, before we get into what we're talking about for this week, wanted to check how you guys are feeling. So we have a thing, Atul, that we do called Rose, Bud, Thorn.
Okay.
Rose is something that you're feeling good about, that's making you happy. That's happened recently. A thorn is something that's annoying you or that you're angry about or sad about. And a bud is something that you're hopeful about, but we'll come to that at the end of the conversation.
Okay.
So what's your rose to start off with? And Garima, you want to go first? Or? Garima normally, actually, to give you context, also writes it down beforehand.
Oh, wow. I didn't do that.
Yeah, you didn't know, so it's
I did not write it this time because I think the
Shoddy.
clear winner is the ceasefire.
Okay, that's a good rose.
I think this is my first hand experience of an actual conflict that I have seen on the television or on social media, and I was anxious throughout. So I already have anxiety, so just constantly refreshing my feed was making me even more anxious. And when the ceasefire was announced, I think that has to be my rose for the week.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And I think, I share that. I'll share it with you.
Yeah.
Atul?
No, honestly, I'll also agree with her.
Yeah.
Even though we're in Mumbai, and all through the days of the conflict, we were all having very nice, peaceful nights. I think I mean, movie theaters were open for a long time. IPL was going on live. I mean, I sometimes think how life would be at the border, the bordering states, the bordering cities, especially in the line of the fire.
Yeah.
And honestly, from a heart, a lot of it was a lot of, we were so thankful to the armed forces for keeping us so safe. We were not aware what's happening,
Yeah.
I mean, especially like Bombay is like maybe an hour away from Karachi by flight, or maybe 30-40 minutes. I don't know what's the thing, but we are also very close to the border. We are not sitting in, the northeast sector of India or the eastern sector. We are very close, and we were so, there was no siren also, which came out. So generally the Rose, when the ceasefire sort of happened, because not from any standpoint, who'd called for it, but just, I think all of us want peace.
Yeah.
I think that's where it came from.
I remember actually feeling like a weight had been lifted. Obviously, like you said, we're very privileged, we're protected from it. But over the weekend, the team was just constantly again refreshing Twitter, refreshing Instagram to see updates, and then figuring out what do you believe, what do you not believe, because that was our fight or our conflict was with misinformation, right? That's the way that it played out. And then when the ceasefire got announced, it was okay, there's some semblance of normalcy. Let's hope it holds. My wife and I were going out for dinner that night because I remember Saturday evening is when it happened. And we stepped out for dinner, and right when we were stepping out, again, we started seeing some reports and then it's okay, that uncertainty. And it's just been such a heavy load that I think we've all, even though we're privileged, have carried somewhere mentally over the course of the last week. So very, very glad that that's over. And I think it would be hard to have a Rose that is not that.
That beats that.
Yeah. Unless somebody had a kid or there's other miraculous stuff. Yeah.
But
or I mean, your kid won't feel bad even if you say that. Yeah. Okay, what was your thorn then? What's something that annoyed you or angered you or you're feeling sad about?
I mean, the news. I know I'm giving very easy answers, but I'm sorry. This week has just been very anxiety inducing, and the news has been on my mind and constantly refreshing. In fact, I realize that I'm constantly on Instagram, and Instagram is not the place for news updates because also the people that I follow are not, even if I'm following journalists, they're not going to give you live updates about what is happening. So I went on X, which is also a terrible place. So then I just decided to watch the news instead. And
that's the worst of it, I guess.
So then I decided to just watch. I had my earphones on and I was constantly watching NDTV live. Yeah. And I was causing anxiety to myself by witnessing the news. So it's a cop out of an answer, but I'm sorry.
Fair.
Yeah.
It's not a cop out. I think it is.
And you also mentioned three things. You mentioned Instagram. You mentioned X, Twitter.
Yeah.
And you mentioned news. There's a bigger fourth thing called WhatsApp. WhatsApp groups and uncles on WhatsApp group. They had taken it to a very different level. And as an uncle myself and part of a lot of these uncle WhatsApp groups, we've, the information first comes on WhatsApp. Because I think first of all, it's this crazy desire for a lot of uncles to be the first on the group to post something like breaking news. This actually happened. Massive. They use these big words. I don't have a TV in my bedroom. I have one in the living room, but I don't put it on. Also on Twitter, I have been mature enough or old enough to see that who not to follow, because there were accounts, the Pakistani accounts faking as Indians. Indians faking. It was crazy. It was a bloodbath over there. So Twitter is anyway a bloodbath, very, very toxic. Instagram also, I have just follow I follow Faye. I only follow Faye. Sometimes I listen to Ravish on YouTube. Because those are really journalists who who are not just throwing anything up here and there. So for me, sorry to come back to the question, my thorn again was a lot of misinformation.
So I used to be a TV journalist. I was at CNBC for a good close to 5 years. But over the last week, my blood has also been boiling, following TV channels, following TV journalists on Twitter, which I feel like is almost a different genre of, because the stuff that they're maybe not putting out on their TV channel, because somebody maybe with good sense is saying, don't put this out, as rare as that is, they are coming on Twitter and then tweeting about it in real time. I don't want to name names. I think over the course of this, I will end up naming names because I am really angry. And I made this point last week and we cut it out of the podcast, but this week we'll hopefully keep it. That the job of the news media is to speak truth to power. And over the last week, the news media has been speaking lies to the masses. It is a complete opposite of what they are supposed to do. And there is no reason for it. You know, I feel like on some level now, when something like this is going on, you're anxious. You want to check for updates. And like Garima said, that's what kind of led her also to putting on the TV news channel. But I think a lot of TV news channels, just because they know people are tuned in, want to give you the sense that this is a continuous thing. So in real time, as you're watching them, and you would get the sense that every minute or every 2 minutes, there is a fresh airstrike or a fresh drone strike or fresh shelling or a fresh, which is not the way that it's playing out in real time. And I found it so ironic that through the night, your TV news channel is telling you all of these things have happened. A fighter pilot from Pakistan is in custody. We have taken Islamabad. The Pakistani Prime Minister is hiding in a bunker. These are all real things that very popular TV news channels have said. And the next morning, Vikram Misri, our foreign secretary from the Ministry of External Affairs, is coming on TV very calmly and saying, none of this has happened.
Exactly.
These are actually the things that have happened. There were, 200 drones, 300 drones in 36 places. He is giving you the facts.
Correct.
Which, like, the government is doing the job of what your news media is supposed to do. And that whole night you have felt anxious because you're watching this news. Yeah. And then you wake up in the morning and you're told, actually, that's not true at all. You had no real reason to feel anxious about this stuff. And that's and what makes me really, really angry, and sorry, this is becoming a little bit of a monologue, is like, we've seen it when 26/11 happened also. And that's what I think one of the briefings from the government also said, that like when the Air India hijacking happened, like when Kargil has happened, like when 26/11 has happened, TV news channels are not helping or doing public good. They are actually spreading so much fear. And the cherry on top of the cake was that some TV news journalists and some people on Twitter are like, yeah, they're doing it intentionally. These are psyops. We want to confuse the Pakistani, armed forces by telling them that actually, so they should be confused. That have you actually hit Rawalpindi? Have you actually hit Karachi? Have you actually done this? Which is just the biggest piece of bullshit. Like that how is it okay?
Can I just, so I thought about this, and I feel like we live in such a weird time where traditional media is in constant competition with social media. And on social media, even if there is misinformation, and there is misinformation everywhere, but there are also very real personal accounts. So if a Priya from, say, Amritsar is posting that, I can hear sirens and I can hear, and there is a blackout, I am going to believe that woman, right? So by the time the news channel has already sort of reported that or verified that piece of information, I'm already talking to this woman. I've already offered my are you okay? Or already spoken to her, which is what I think the traditional media is up against. So to kind of keep that refresh thing, sort of that fever going, they make up news. And it is, of course, it's a very strange time, but you have to kind of wait for the news channels to, verify news, but
nobody wants to wait.
Nobody wants to. And I kind of get it, but also it's really dumb because that's your whole job. To kind of, verify news.
Also to add to this, and with zero accountability, these guys are just talking out of, like, if a comedian says one wrong word, entire nation comes to pull them down, to take them to Lok Sabha. Like we'll discuss in the next parliament session, we'll discuss this joke which a comedian made, or whatever happened. But these guys are just, nobody questions them. There's no guy who calls, hey, come to my office next day. How the hell did you make all these silly things? Number one. Number two, also when you watch these news, there are sirens playing in the background. There is, like, till yesterday I was watching, yesterday I was in a show somewhere, and I saw on the TV, because in a hotel there's a TV room, that's where I watch TV. And there were continuously some missiles going here and there, behind background there are just some missiles taking off, the siren, the tone of the voice, that day someone shared on Instagram how news was 90s, and there was this Doordushan reporter very nicely, calmly talking, so that's how, you don't try to, you're actually trying to create so much anxiety, amongst people. So I think this was really, really upset you so much that guys, stop it. And I'm so glad this, 11 o'clock, my friends on WhatsApp are saying either drones are coming, this has happened. I was watching White Lotus season 3. I said, just switch off and just calm yourself down, because I know I'm going to read the newspaper at 7 in the morning and hopefully some things will come. And you rely on what Mr. Mistry, the press briefings, which is so nice, so composed, exactly telling you with facts, with figures and things like that. Not like we have entered Rawalpindi, Karachi port is destroyed and things like that. I mean, just unnecessary, because then you're thinking as Indians, okay, as good we destroyed Karachi port, we have reached Islamabad, but now there maybe a retaliation will come, of course, and 100% they'll also retaliate, and you are also worried about that as also that your army will take care of it, but still the war is just flaring up. And unnecessary because of these, sorry to say, idiots who are just saying anything off the hat with zero accountability.
And to add to this, I feel like the social media reportage also makes you feel like you are participating in the war for some reason. Like if you are not constantly refreshing, constantly getting updates, which is, you're not the reportage even on traditional media makes it's really not about informing people. It's about managing perceptions that okay, there is a certain sense of there is a certain narrative that people want, so what is the kind of news that will push that propaganda? And at least on social media, I mean, I know most people are not getting their news from social media, but at least there, and most, as in I'm assuming even then you're following traditional media house pages only, at least there is some level of okay, this was wrong, okay, I've checked, I've verified, okay, this you can fact check. Whereas once it's live on television, no news anchor is going to come online and say, oh, we made a mistake, because they did not make a mistake. It was very intentional, very conscious use of war to increase TRPs. And there is a person who's come on Arnab's channel and is congratulating Arnab on the TRPs.
Yeah, of course.
And also while all this thing is going on the side, there are banners playing. Yesterday, I don't know which channel I was watching Modi ji's speech yesterday at 8 o'clock. And while he was talking, there were like some ads coming. Suddenly on the right hand side, I saw Rashmika Mandana ka some ad coming, selling some fans, some ceiling fans, then some money control ka some ad came. So it's all about
it's
increased TRPs, it's revenue.
It's the business. A lot of the journalists who got called out for fake news, etc., who had to apologize in the face of like so many people calling them out. Now, for example, one of the new developments that we've gotten yesterday is that there was some action in Karachi, right? And like INS Vikrant moved closer to Karachi as a deterrent apparently to some of the Pakistani Air Force fighters, etc. So even though the journalist actually had claimed 3-4 days ago that the Navy has attacked Karachi for the first time since 1971, India has Karachi port is on fire. That is not what your official thing is saying, but still you're claiming on that and saying, see, I told you Karachi was under attack. I might have gotten the details wrong. And again, there's no repercussion, which I think we should talk about. You raised that point about comedians, and I think it is something also that Niti Palta tweeted about and put it out on Instagram, that like, how come we are expecting to hold comedians to accountability and we don't have that same thing from journalists? And we were talking about it when we were talking about Himanshi Narwal also last week before this retaliation happened, that so many people are trolling her just for saying that punish those who are responsible, but let's also not attack people who don't deserve it, Muslims and Kashmiris. And that has become that's apparently the wrong stance to take. And the National Commission of Women has taken so long to get back and then say that, okay, this is a problem. Whereas when Latent happened, which was a comedian-led thing, everybody was so instantly on it, and like how our priorities have changed. But Atul, I want to also, because you kind of mentioned that you've lived through Kargil, and you mentioned that example of Doordarshan also. In my memory, I think Kargil was one of those first places where we were seeing there were already some private news channels at that time. And we had, I remember Barkha that very famously was embedded with the troops at that point and was getting real-time coverage. But how different was it in your memory? Like what you've seen over the course of the last week?
I think it's the social media, the Twitters and the Instagrams, and people are relying on that for source of information. And I think that has, and again in the desire of all of them to get more views, more numbers, more TRPs or whatever you call it. If it's an influencer doing it, it's number of views they get on that video, number of followers you add. It's just pure that metrics. That was not there. I think it was more controlled narrative. It was narrative coming from the army, from the press briefing, and maybe from reporters like Barkha who were on the ground, maybe saying that. But I think we were getting more genuine information coming out of there. Whatever the information was coming out, and I totally agree that the army should not give out all information to the public. We are not. It's under a pay grade to get that kind of information. So it's good for the army, for the press spokesman there to decide what has to be told to the public, because obviously a lot of things have not to be told. We are in the middle of a war. So, but now it was like a free for all, and that really got me. And I am actually, this time I was happy with myself that I was a little bit out of it. Like I was relying on news, I was relying on Faye D'Souza, I was relying on. Actually, once I went on Twitter, I was just saying, let me find a good source of information. A lot of people tweeted about it. Hey, which channel can I follow? Which I will, which I know that a Pakistani guy, or which to follow. I think that was such a burning desire. And there was none. There was none. And I think, coming back to your question, I think it was more, controlled. It was more mature, I would say.
We were talking about Kargil, and Atul, you mentioned that at that time the information was much more restrained. It was coming more from government sources, or it was coming from reporters who were on the ground. And of course, we had far fewer TV news channels at that time. We didn't have the capabilities that we do in terms of live broadcasting, etc.
I don't think Twitter also was there.
I don't think Twitter was also. No, I think this is pre-social media. This is
I think Facebook was there.
No. I think Facebook was also 2006. So this was 99. So this is actually pre smartphone era, most importantly. That if you needed internet, you had to log in from your desktop computer or laptop at that time. Garima, wanted to ask you, because you've also been silent for a little bit, that as a consumer of content on social media also, what is did you also feel pressure to, you didn't put out a lot of stuff, right? Did you feel pressure to like talk about it because everybody was talking about it, or is it something you observed on social media specifically?
I did not feel the pressure because I think people are not expecting me to put out anything because I don't have that many followers, touch wood, and I would like to keep it that way. But I do think that I did see the pressure from the influencers or the content creators to constantly put out something saying, oh, we wish for peace, or something generic, or some updates, because as you said, Faye D'Souza puts out facts, and it's the safest to put out facts that are especially verified, to show that okay, I am I do care about this issue that is happening. But you also don't want to put out opinions, you don't want to put out certain what your personal politics is in times like these. And I kind of support that, contrary to what I used to feel, say, during COVID times, because COVID was a public health emergency, right? Now, if you are saying things like, okay, please don't step out, please this, please that, and we were also using social media to, get oxygen for patients, figure out beds and stuff. So we were using social media for the good, for the better. But in this scenario, there have been, again, I won't take names. I don't know if you've seen, there has been a content creator who's put out a very aggressive video saying that this is India's stance. Who are you? Who knows you, outside of your couple of followers? So, but then it gets engagement, it gets more views, which is far more dangerous, I feel, because it plays into the sentiments of people who already believe a certain type of narrative, and then they want to kind of push it out. And from my own personal anecdote, one of my friends had started posting stuff, and she's again not very popular, but she has more followers than me. And friends have started calling her anti-national because she's asking for peace. And it is scary because you put out anything, and the reaction to that, you are going to get a reaction. There are people who are going to immediately attack you and say, how can you say this? Even if you're saying the most basic human thing, they are not going to take it. So in these times, in fact, I would say that it's best to not say anything, because this is not your area of expertise. According to me, you all could have different opinions, but I feel my generation specifically, this is the first time we are seeing something like this. It's best, and in this age of misinformation, social media, where so many active updates are, it's best to just stay silent and just, just receive updates rather than update your followers or put out opinions or say anything, because this is a very politically charged climate, and you don't want to kind of lend to that environment.
Atul, what is your view on it? And I'll add one layer to this question, which is, you reminded me when you were talking about it, that when the ceasefire was announced, there was also a section of the Indian internet that was upset that had happened, right? And that has led to, I mean, one of the biggest ways it's played out is that Vikram Misri is being trolled. He's had to protect his tweets because there was also connections that his daughter is a humanitarian lawyer and she's written articles for The Wire, which is seen as this leftist kind of news publication. But there were genuinely people who were like, why are we letting them off the hook? You know, and I've seen it on both sides. There are, which is funny to me, that when somebody from Pakistan will reply to your tweet and say something like, "Arey, tum log bach gaye," you know, Trump has saved you or whatever, you laugh at it. You're like, this is such a ludicrous thing for you to say. But on our country also, I just want to say there are also idiots on both sides.
Absolutely.
There are people who are also like calling for escalation. I remember Arnab Goswami's first reaction to when Trump announced it.
I have a video of that, literally.
Yeah. So he just had a meltdown and he kind of said that who is Donald Trump to get involved in this or whatever, and later they took it down from
he said, I will talk to Modi. I will I will see to it.
There's a section of people who I think was genuinely upset that this had ended, and I want your POV on that, because you mentioned you're also on some of these uncle WhatsApp groups, etc. Do you think it's a gendered thing firstly? Do you think it's something that men are more likely to feel aggressively about, or is it just a aggressive thing, or is it just that Pakistan sometimes brings this out in us?
I think it's first of all, I think the Pakistan brings it out as a number one. Number two, I don't know if this is really gender specific. It could be more uncle specific, you know, sitting in the armchairs on WhatsApp, you know. See, this is the worst thing, you know, you have a 5G connectivity on a supercomputer in your hand. You can give galis to any PM in the world. You can give your opinion, you know. Earlier it was not there. Earlier, to say something to a PM, you take a piece of paper, write a letter, find the address. You don't know whether your letter will reach there or no. It will get lost in mail, you know. So today you are like, you can tweet to Narendra Modi. Like, can you imagine how stupid and so easy it has become, you know? So, like, one of the things in this entire thing, Mr. Bachchan was not tweeting, he was putting these numbers. There were people trolling him. Why are you silent? You know, and you know, I mean, so silly it is, you know. So my take on this entire thing of, like, I'll tell you, my only tweet in this entire thing was that Operation Sindoor came out. I said, Operation Sindoor, I put a thumbs up. Abhi jo hoga, dekha jayega. At this time, first of all, you have to support the country. Even though I may not be pro BJP, but at this time, and even the opposition came together. Say, you take, now we are together.
It's bigger
you
than
started
this.
it. We agree with you. Those terrorist camps have to be destroyed. You have done a targeted attack. Now go for it. You don't know what will happen. Like earlier, what used to happen when there used to be cries. I know people used to go to blood banks and the queues in blood. People donating blood will go to this. People donating rations to people donating. Then there was no time of online payment. I think somebody already said that the government should start a fund to, you know, blah blah blah, to take money from us, to, you know, take half of money of Adani and Ambani, put it in the you know, all these tweets are coming up that increase the defense budget, and you know, no, let's thoda restrain karo. I think you can't be just, you know, say what you want to. I generally believe you should say what you want to. If you generally believe it, and then stick to it, you know. Then so that was it, you know.
From the POV of making jokes about this, when Pahalgam happened and before the retaliation happened, one of my favorite subgenres of content on the internet was Pakistani memes, where the Pakistani folks were only saying, we're already screwed. Like, what will you do? You know, what retaliation are you going to do now? And there was this whole like thing of dark humor that they were kind of putting out. Are there like specific, like when you think of now the next time you're performing, how long are you going to wait before this could be material in your set?
I think over the years it has taught me. I'm been 14 years in the stand-up comedy, so I know you have to be slightly restrained. If you have any joke in your head, say it to yourself, say it to your daughters. Don't put it up on a tweet. You know, because at this time anything can be, like I put out Operation Dab Doega, Dekha Jayega. I put that, which is very positive. I feel it. You know, whatever happens, let it happen. Now we are with the country. I got trolled for that also. You know, where were you when Pahalgam happened? You know, and things like that. Idiot, I'm supporting the government. Like, so because the comedian. So now the thing is, comedian plus whatever he says is making a fun of the topic. You know, so it's become as sometimes silly as that. And you know, these are nameless, I know, trolls who are there, you know, maybe I don't know, they're computer bots, what are they, you know. So, and you can't make like I will never make fun of the war or things like that, but I will definitely make fun of how Trump was the first guy to tweet, Like this entire, like my thing was the entire this ceasefire, he would have spoken, okay, whatever happens, but I'm going to tweet first. Because I think I'm very clear he wants to, there's a talk that he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. That's what he's hunting for this year. So he'll say, I solved India-Pakistan, I solved Russia, Ukraine, I solved Israel, Gaza.
Who else but
now
me?
I have to get the Nobel. So he's, hunting for the Nobel Peace Prize, which he's going to do. I believe yesterday, I don't know, Modi's speech was 8 o'clock. At 7:30, he
has addressed.
Which is like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, wherever he is in the morning. I mean, so desperate here. He's the same guy. So my only joke was the guy who has talked about ceasefire is the same guy who within days of the Pope dying tweeted himself a photo of him as the Pope. And he said, I'll make a very beautiful Pope. Oh, I'm joking, but I'll make a very beautiful Pope. I think somewhere he was believing
for sure.
that maybe they'll come to him and say, we can't find a good Pope. Why do you become the Pope? And he say, okay, for the sake of humanity. And forget him tweeting it. The White House official handle retweeted that. I still have, it's still there on Twitter. People go and see it. It's so silly, So this guy is now getting ceasefire between India and Pakistan. He's talking about 1,000-year-old war between India. He doesn't know also what's happening.
And now he's in fact like gone one step further and said that he'll solve the Kashmir issue of the occupation.
Which he knows jack shit about.
We will talk and we'll see how we can fix this 1,000 years down the line.
I put in quotes, which is like, I mean, the thing is like the dude is just entertaining. I mean, you say whatever you want. He's like box office, right? In that sense that like you want to see what he's doing. No, so I mean, obviously there have been funny moments about it, and I'm sure that you're getting into it. But like the big observation for me from what you were saying is that I don't think that Indian journalists are thinking this much in terms of being restrained before they put out something. Like utna to hai hi nahi. Like we are literally, I think, holding our comedians to higher standards of accountability and responsibility than the press.
I'm not looking out for followers out of this. You know?
Couple of quick things that I want your quick reactions to. And one of this I'll give a little bit of context to. Last week when we recorded the podcast episode, part of the podcast was on the trolling of Himanshi Narwal. We decided to edit that part out because that is the day when the retaliation happened. And we also felt like we're in a space where we need to support the country and have like a unified narrative about it. Now that it's settled a little bit, I want to revisit it. And I also want to revisit it from the POV that this whole operation, the retaliation operation, was called Operation Sindoor. And there have been numerous references now made to the fact that because there were women who lost their husbands in Pahalgam, and their husbands were shot in front of them, we have to avenge this and this needs to be done. Where I agree with some of the messaging, and I actually think net positive thing to have two women wing commanders or, women members of the armed forces up front and center in the briefings. I think the way that the diplomacy was handled was
beautiful.
I have no kind of notes. But I also want to call back that if you're calling it Operation Sindoor, and that is now the core reason that you're giving, that we had to kind of strike back because of this, we also have to acknowledge that Himanshi Narwal has faced so much trolling for saying a simple thing, which was take action against those responsible, but make sure that this does not become a reason to hate Muslims and Kashmiris. That's all that she said.
Absolutely.
She is somebody who has lost her husband while they were on their honeymoon.
In her arms.
And that photo has been taken also and used as kind of the poster for why there needs to be retaliation.
And sorry to say, add to that, it was Ghiblified or whatever you call it. It was pathetic, sorry to say.
So all of that has happened, and she has the maturity to, even in her deepest anger, rage, sadness, grief, whatever she's feeling, make a very mature call and say that let's not use this as let my husband not be the reason that people are targeted who are innocent. And she's been trolled so much and there has not been that much response against it. I mean, understandably, in the last few days, obviously, everybody's busy. But I hope that there is some accountability for the people who have trolled her. Atul, you were mentioning that, there was a person has tweeted about the fact that she was at JNU and at that time she used to have friends who were, Muslims or Kashmiri, and she used to spend lots of time with them. Like, her character has been completely defamed.
So sick.
And there is zero action. And I hope that one of the things that comes out of this is that there is some sort of action taken to support her.
Yeah, how the government targeted these terror camps across the border, they should also shut down these terror camps which are operating as social media accounts on Twitter, targeting, people like Mr. Narwal and Vikram Misri recently. What did he say? he suddenly became the harbinger. Like he's the guy who put the ceasefire. Right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to say anything towards the leadership.
Of course.
You'll catch this weak guy, poor guy who was so controlled in his thinking, who's target his daughter, because and release photographs. It's so silly. It's so sick. It's so violent. It disgusts you. Like who are these creatures? Now they're not human beings. I don't know whether accounts are really people. If there are people behind them, go to their house, pick them up, throw them behind bars. How dare you tweet it? Take away the internet accounts.
Yeah, it's been really sad. The Vikram Misri thing also. I mean,
and even Zubair, Mohammed Zubair's full night he was awake. Every fact checking. Then suddenly became the hero. Within 3 days again he's.
They've said that they were sending pork packages to his house because he's Muslim. He's been labeled so many things, and I mean for him it's nothing new because I feel like since he's been operating, alt news and kind of fact checking, it's always been there. It's so disgusting, and I hope there's some action.
Absolutely.
The last thing I wanted to touch upon is actually something that happened recently. It happened last night, which was that Piers Morgan had a debate on this, and there were 2 Pakistani spokespersons and 2 Indian spokespersons. The Indian spokespersons happened to be Ranveer Alabadia, Pure Biceps, and Barkha Dutt, which is, I will just say, a strange combination of 2 people if you're getting spokespersons. But I was actually really impressed with Ranveer because I have this feeling that, people who are very familiar with TV or have been on TV interviews a lot don't take TV news that seriously. But people who aren't and people who are more from the digital world actually take it seriously. So Ranveer suited up. He had a tie and stuff, and he had printouts, or stuff. He was fully prepped. And his talking points were simple, but he communicated very effectively, which was great. And from the Pakistani side, it just seemed a little bit all over the place. There were lots of deflections about stuff. There were lots of allegations about the Prime Minister and what has he done for Muslims, or the fact that in previous things India has also been an aggressor, but it didn't seem unified. It was just very, very random, and it's played out pretty badly for the Pakistani side, I have to say.
I also
Did you watch it?
I watched it just actually 2 hours before. And hats off to both Barkha and this, because they asked very simple questions to Pakistan. That was, these are terrorists. Osama bin Laden was 800 meters, not even a kilometer away from your Islamabad military headquarters. And for 4 years, you all didn't know he was there. And in fact, Piers also said it. This is a failure, a massive collapse of your India. You don't know, guys. The world's most wanted terrorist sitting less than a kilometer away from your bloody headquarters. Of course, they knew about it. And those guys were just quoting, and the way they were deflecting. This Barkha is a simple question, boss. Didn't we not Lashkar-e-Toiba and the LED, we didn't, bomb the thing, Rasaja target, and she had no answer to it. Why are you harboring these bloody terrorists in your backyard?
It was quite entertaining to watch. But also, what's funny to me is that just a couple of months ago, and how fortune changes also, I feel is something to be said. With Samay, I think right before the latent controversy happened, he was on KBC. He was in the national kind of attention, national media attention. Latent was doing so well, every brand wanted to be associated, and then that happens, and now we await his comeback, and we hope that it happens, because I still feel like the reaction was very, very abnormal to that. And Pure Biceps, Ranveer, conversely, cancelled for just being a guest on that show and asking a question.
Not his question. Taken from somewhere else.
Not even his question. That's true. And that gets all of this outrage and becomes the epicenter for this. And then a couple of months later, he is back and he is on international TV as the spokesperson for India. And what was really funny to me is that when the latent controversy happened, I remember that Barkha had done a full show, and that whole, it was a bunch of people who were kind of baying for blood also from Ranveer to say that how could he have asked this question, this insults the moral fiber, what do these influencers think of themselves or whatever, which is also, I feel, an overreaction. You can have a problem with it, but you don't need to make it that. And now they're forced to be on the same side, and they are presenting a united front when they're talking about this. Just funny to me how quickly your luck can change. And
something to be said about Ranveer's PR here.
Yeah, that too.
Good job.
Yeah, good job. But good job to Ranveer also. I will say that this one printed picture of Osama bin Laden, that was a very good investment. The return on investment of that printout of that picture, I just want to say, is something that the whole country, I think, is reaping, which is good. Okay, I think I thought it's going to be a much deeper, intense chat last week, and I'm glad that we've been able to have a little bit of fun with it. We've been able to process it, and I'm feeling much better after this chat. We do this thing traditionally, Atul, before we end, which is what's your bud, or what is something that gives you hope. And it does not have to be related completely to what we've been talking about. But anything that you think gives you hope?
Very greedily, I hope that ticket sales of my shows in the few weeks pick up, because they had just stalled over the last 1 week.
Yeah.
And so I hope they pick up. And
we hope so too.
Yeah, come and we try to make you laugh.
Where are you? We should actually give a shout out also.
I'm performing. Just go to my website, atulkhatri.com. Okay. You'll see I'm performing in Singapore, Jakarta. in Mumbai. I have some shows. I have a show in Calcutta, Guwahati. All over the country. So it's my new show. Come and watch it.
Yeah.
Endeavor is to make you laugh, And,
I endorse it. Comedians are making more sense than journalists now. And this podcast is proof of it. He might not only be talking sense on his show. He'll make you laugh also. But please do definitely go and follow Atul across all social media platforms. Garima, what gives you hope?
My bud for the week, I think, has to be the fact that people are starting to realize that traditional media houses and media in general spreads a lot of misinformation. So hopefully they will, remember this in the coming months, years. Yeah. So when something sensationalism of news happens, they will remember that, okay, I mean, they have sort of misled us in the past. So we don't have to immediately trust them, because they have been spreading a lot of propaganda in the past few years. Yeah. And we have not really reacted to it. So I like how they have finally been, I think, called out for their behavior. So,
I like to add something earlier. At home we used to have dinner usually at night with the TV on. And whenever these debates is gone, I used to end up eating more rotis, because in that somebody screaming at you, you're just grabbing at your food, chomping, you're not chewing your food properly. So when we removed the TV out of the living room, my digestion is better. I'm eating less carbs. So it improves your health also, actually.
Health hacks no one will tell you.
But more people should tell you. What gives me hope is similar to what you said, but I also want to shout out some of the people who I feel like have been trustworthy sources.
Absolutely.
This is by no means an exhaustive list, because I also kind of got overwhelmed by the amount of people who are talking about stuff, and it was very I will say that some people who I thought are credible journalists, after this instance I'm are maybe not as credible or as journalisty as I thought. But I want to give a couple of shout outs very quickly. One of them we alluded to earlier, which is Mohammed Zubair and Alt News. I think there was a lot of misinformation going on. They have, as always, done a fantastic job of fact checking and stood up to all of the hate that they've gotten.
I'd like to add one to this. Mohammed, in fact, he corrected Grok, which is an AI tool. Grok put out something and he said, no, this is from Sudan, from so-and-so, and Grok recorded, you're right.
So
he's beating Grok, which is one of the most powerful AI tools available. So just to let you know, that's a good job. Sorry, please continue.
No, I think, thank you for adding it, because I had seen it and then I had kind of forgotten. Also, a couple of Instagram accounts I follow from people that we have worked with actually, who happen to be in Kashmir. So there's Ahmer Khan, who's a Pulitzer winning photojournalist, did a tremendous job through this also. There's Junaid Bhat, who's also a photographer in Jammu and Kashmir, who kind of gives real-time updates. From the mainstream, Shiv Aroor was on ground in J&K. And in general, NDTV, Vishnu Som, Shiv Aroor did a very restrained job of reporting. Again, by no means an exhaustive list. I'm sure there are Faye D'Souza, of course. I want to just say again that she gets a lot of criticism now, especially from more liberal quarters, saying that, oh, she's not giving an opinion, she's just tweeting safe stuff or whatever. But that's exactly what is needed in times like this. You need fact. You don't necessarily need editorializing or opinion. And shout out to Faye D'Souza for whatever it's worth. And I feel like if we are in despair that all of these traditional media sources and some influencers, etc., are going the wrong direction completely, it also does give me hope that there are still people to follow who will give you a good picture of what's going on. And I think we should leave some more in the caption, because I'm realizing that there are many people I've forgotten who have actually been on ground and doing a great job of reporting. That was the episode for this week. If you liked it, then subscribe to Yuvaa on YouTube. Follow So What by Yuvaa on Instagram. We have a Substack which has not been very active. I've not written now, I feel like, in 2 months, but I will get back to it. I'm saying this also to put pressure on myself so that I can write on that. And this podcast is also available as an audio podcast wherever you get your podcast. So do check it out on audio platforms as well if you prefer to listen to us. You can also watch us on those platforms now. The lines between video and audio are really blurring. And as always, if you like this content, like, comment, share, subscribe to We Are Yuvaa on all social media platforms. And thanks again, Atul, for joining us.
Thank you.
Pleasure having you
so much
with your perspective.
Yes.
And thank you. We'll see you again next week. And bye.